Hi everyone, welcome to this new talk. I'm Luc Nailis. I work as a product owner for Odoo, and today, right now, we'll talk about making your apps more user friendly, which is how can you make sure that the software you're working on is easy to use by users that are discovering it by themselves. So, first of all, I would like to start with a question, and it goes like this. What do you think is the difference between a software that's extremely annoying to use, the one you yell at, the one that's so boring and so frustrating, and one that you're delighted to use, one that makes you feel empowered, that makes you happy because, working is so easy with this software, right? What's the difference between both? Of course, there's no easy answers, but one of the answers and one of the main way to improve this is onboarding. So what is onboarding? When a new person is hired in a company, there is usually an onboarding process, which is helping the employee feeling welcomed and getting him to know what he's supposed to do on his daily work, right? Well, for software is the same. If you have a new user coming in and discovering your software, you need to make sure that A, he feels welcomed, and B, he knows what he's supposed to do, right? And I like the poetry of the word in English because, you're in a boat and people are lost at sea and you're like onboarding them, getting them on your boat so that they can get out of the water. And what happens if you don't have a proper onboarding? Let's say that you have a perfect software, with all the features, all everything is nice, no bug, etc., but you don't have an onboarding at all. Well, if you don't have an onboarding, people won't understand what your software is actually doing, they won't get it. And if they don't get what it does, chances are they will never use it, if they don't get the value and how it works, etc., nobody will use your software. And then if nobody uses your software is basically useless. Your app is useless. So in short, we could say that if you don't have a proper onboarding, your app is useless, right? Nobody uses it, so it's useless. And let's add another question. How long do you think people actually test a new software when they're on their own and just giving it a try out of curiosity? You just type the answer in the chat and you'll see that probably there will be a lot of different answers already. So, of course, it's not a scientific answer, but from what we saw at Odoo, watching user tests, etc., it's usually around 15 minutes, but 15 minutes at most. So, 15 minutes is like really the people that are trying hard and giving it a fair chance, because a lot of users stay for 5 to 10 minutes and then decide that the software or is not a good match and just leave. So if you have a perfect software but you don't manage to grab their attention and their interest in those 15 minutes, chances are you will never become able to convert those prospects into real users. So what you want to do is to make the most out of those 15 first minutes because this is your chance to become part of their lives, right? Otherwise, you will be forgotten forever and replaced by a competitor that did it better. So, what you want to do is focus on what we call the aha moment. The aha moment is if you remember last time you discovered a software, it's when you're trying something, just following steps. You're clicking around, you're not sure what you're doing, but there's a tool, so you're just following the steps. And at some point, you reach a moment where you just perform something really cool. And at this point, you get the value of the software and you go, ah, okay, that seems cool. Aha, okay, now I get what the software is for. It's so great. I want this in my life because this software is awesome. Well, this is what you want to build as a software designer, product owner, app developer, or whatever for your users. It's this specific moment. So, what makes a great software? There's a ton of things that you can do, but part of it is onboarding. And onboarding is also a pretty broad subject, but we will talk about the specific technique or strategy that is called the aha moment. So getting user to this moment where they realize where the value of the software is, and you have to make sure that they get there. So to explain a bit more how you can do this, we'll talk about the onboarding at Odoo, and we'll see 5 cases or 5 changes we did during the last version to make sure that people would get to this aha moment, right? So those are 5 improvements that we did, where the focus was making sure that the software was allowing user during this 15 minutes trial to get to this point. All right. So the first one is clean up your empty screens. So what does it mean? Usually, as a software designer, as a tester, as a quality analyst, whatever, you usually work with a sample of test data. So your database is never empty. You never start from scratch because you're testing so many things again and again and again that you just gain time by having a set of data already preloaded. But guess what? All your new users will not have those. So they will start from ground zero. And you have to make sure that to get them to the aha moment, you actually keep everything clear even when your software is empty, because it's the point where it's most complicated to guess. It's like when you're driving and there's nobody on the street, you can't just follow people around. You have to read the signs and make sure that you get the right way. So let's take an example. Say that you're discovering Odoo and you've heard about the CRM that looks great and is awesome, but you open the CRM and it looks like this. Well, do you have any idea of how Odoo will change your life? Do you have any idea of what's the value of the Odoo CRM? Well, not really. It's just a blank state because there's nothing yet. Of course, it's your new database. So let's clean this up a bit and we say we add a clear call to action. We emphasize the button create and we put it in primary green so that we are sure that people see it. At least we try to make sure people see it. Still not that clear, right? Completely empty screen with just a button. You don't know by itself what you're supposed to do. So we add another layer and we just display, even though they're empty, the different stages of your pipeline. So you see already as a new user, you're guessing, okay, so I have stages, they go from new to one, so I probably need to get things from left to right, right? And then we add some more content and we add what we call the sample data or dummy data. So those are fake data generated on the fly, just so that you can know, okay, my Kanban view will look somehow like this. So what can I see on those cards? Well, there's something that I guess is a name, some amounts, and then some stars. So stars probably for a priority, and some colors here and there. Already you get way more the value of the CRM, right? You're getting closer and closer to this moment because here you can already see, even though you have no data, what your software will look like once you start using it. And then finally, we had an action helper, which is a great way to tell you what you're supposed to do and where you are in the software. So we tell you, create an opportunity to start playing with a pipeline. So with just that single sentence, you see that you already get, okay, I'm working with opportunities and this is a pipeline. So indeed, the left to right movement is because you're converting and moving your opportunities in the pipe. So already you see this is just some graphic improvements, but already for a newcomer that's discovering the CRM, it's really not the same experience. All right. Second tip is to make sure that if you want to get people to the aha moment, you need to make sure that the path is not too long because the more steps you add, the more likely you will use some people along the way, right? Some people will get distracted, other will receive a call, other will have to answer to a urgent email, whatever. So you want to make sure that the path to this moment is as short as possible. How do you do it? Well, let's take an example. The app email marketing is a good example because we did a really small change recently, but that really transformed the experience. What we did is we created by default a mailing list. So why is it really that big of a difference? Is because for us, the aha moment for email marketing is not creating a mailing list and creating recipients, etc. What's really cool and makes you get the value of email marketing is when you're actually creating a mailing, designing it, see how easy it is to put your images, your text, etc., designing something you like, and then sending it and seeing it in a real inbox and seeing how easy it was to do that. And then you track the results, etc. So we want to make sure people get to that point when they're trying the app. And so we removed the sort of sideways of you need to go through your mailing list, you need to create a list, you need to create recipients, etc. This is not part of the exciting part. This is later on your day-to-day operations. But for now, let's focus on the exciting part. Let's get people to the aha moment because we create a list for them. All right. Third is to delay complexity. So keep it simple. People are discovering your software. They don't know it yet, and you want to make sure that everything is as simple as possible. Let's take a comparison. Imagine if you're playing Super Mario and it doesn't start like this. Here, this is a classic example of perfect onboarding because you see that you have a single enemy, which is that angry mushroom dude. You have a lot of space. You can jump around, test the controls. You have everything that you need to discover about the game. But, you have some time before it gets complex. Now imagine if instead of starting like this, you launch the game, you sit in the couch, and it starts like this, and you have just a split second to decide where to go. And if you jump, you die. If you don't jump, you die. If you go to the left, you die. Right? Of course, this won't be a good experience, and chances are you won't try the game for 15 minutes. After 5 minutes, you throw the controller away and say, "This is too frustrating. I quit." Well, if this is so clear for a video game, why don't we do this for all softwares, right? And this is what we do, for example, with the CRM. A CRM can start easy, as we saw, but at some point, as a company, you will have more complex needs. So we have some advanced features. For example, you can automatically assign all your leads based on custom rules, and you can have the system decide which lead goes where. You can handle recurring revenues, etc., etc. But come on, that's not needed for the first steps. So we start with something easy. We start with a little mushroom dude, and then later on we add the fires and the dragons, etc. But we delay the complexity and we keep it simple so that people can get the value of the CRM first and then delve into the harder things. All right, four is avoid tricky choices. So keep things straightforward. This is something that as product designers we tend to do as a mistake. So we like to offer a lot of options. We like to offer a lot of choice because we think it's great, it's flexible, and it helps serve everybody. But in real life, for users, this is extremely hard. Let's take an example. So this used to be the screen where you were supposed to pick your website theme. So you were creating a website, and Odoo was asking you, all right, which of those themes do you want to use for your website? And for users that were just discovering Odoo, this was extremely stressful because this is such a huge dilemma. And they were like, well, this one looks great, but this one too. And can I change them? And what about this picture? That can I remove it later on if I don't want it? And during user tests, we saw a ton of users that were just scrolling up and down, completely lost because this was such a drastic choice so early in the process. And instead, the website team did a change that I found really great is that they created a tool called the website configurator. So the website configurator is basically asking you basic questions. What is your business about? Why are you creating a website? Why are you here, etc. And so with those simple questions that everybody can answer, you're discovering Odoo, but you know why you're testing Odoo, you know what the software is about, you can already get a website, sorry, that looks nice, with all the snippets, the pictures, etc. And from then you can discover that through the editor you can modify pictures, you can change the text, you can change every color. But we start small and we don't ask you something really hard straight away because you don't know yet. You're discovering Odoo, you have no idea what a theme is, so we keep it simple. All right. Five is a bit more theoretic. It's about keeping your software intuitive. Those softwares that you just open and it makes sense, while others are so hard to get. And for this, we'll talk about mental mapping. It's a theory that I got from the book The Design of Everyday Things. If you haven't read it yet, please do because it's an awesome case. So it goes like this. Say that you want to lighten the burner that is below your pan, right? And you have four burners and you have four knobs and they're aligned vertically. You see that they're on the left. Well, which burner are you supposed to activate to start cooking, right? Well, some people would say I think that the buttons are aligned vertically and that the order of those on the burner is one, two, three, four, right? It's a good guess. I mean, it could be. But then I'm sure that in the chat there are people saying, of course not, it's number three. Because if they are aligned vertically, it's because they're aligned like this. And so it's one, two, three, four, right? It makes sense. In truth, that does make sense. Some others would say, no, not at all. It doesn't make any sense. It should be one, two, three, four. Of course, it's like this. Well, chances are, if you only had one chance to push one knob, there's there's no way you can get it right. You can just try it at random, but that's it. So instead, what if we do a small design change and we just put the knobs like this? So you see it's the same knobs, the same burners, everything is the same, except that we put the button in a different order. Straight away, I think that everyone can agree that it's obvious that it's number 2. Why? Because the mapping has been made in a way that's intuitive, right? The controls and the burners are positioned on the same way, and so you can easily see, all right, this is the knob I need to push. Well, let's apply this to Odoo. So let's have a look at what used to be an event template. Event templates are an awesome tool because basically from here, you can do your configuration once. You can design your mailings, put the tickets with their prices, etc. So you do it once, and then for all the conferences, roadshows, exhibitions of the same category that you organize, you can just retrieve this configuration and you just gain a lot of time. The thing is, look how an event template used to look like, and now look how an event looks like. As you can see, it's not easy to know which knobs activates which burner, right? So what we did is exactly the same as we saw in the heuristic example. We redid the view of the event template because when they're like this, how can you guess, if you're not an Odoo expert, how can you guess with option goes with which field, When you're retrieving the configuration, which configuration is supposed to change what? It's not really not clear. So instead of having the situation where it's just a wild guess and you need to double check everything because those are fields and you're a new user, you have no idea what those are, we redid completely the event template view so that it looked like as much as possible an event. And this way, the mapping is natural. You don't have to think really hard. Those are the same fields in the same position, and you're basically just configuring a default event that you'll reuse later on. So you see, there's no big feature, but already this is way clearer for a newcomer. And the aha moment of the template and the value of it is way easier to get. So here, straight away, you can compare both here. You can see that the fields are the same, the notebook is the same, etc. Because we want you to be able to guess straight away, all right, this is where it will go. And that's it. So 5 tips we saw through the use cases and how to make sure that you get people to this aha moment. So one is clean up your empty screens. Make sure that everything is clear, even if your software is empty. Because for you as a tester, a user, everything is clear. You have demo data, so you're not seeing in your app when it's empty. But in real life, people won't have this. Second is shorten the path as much as possible. You want to make sure that users get to this aha moment. Well, remove all the steps that are not extremely mandatory for this process. Make sure that you put some default values or automation that makes it easier. 3 is delay the complexity. Software can, in some cases, become complex because the needs can be a bit trickier, but in truth, this is not straight away needed. Start with this, the little angry dude, mushroom dude, and then later on add the dragons. But don't start straight away with the bridge on fire. 4 is avoid tricky choices. People are discovering their software, they don't know yet what's best for them. So just keep it easy, keep it straightforward, and ask questions people know they can answer and not something that looks like a huge dilemma. Then 5 is mental mapping. So this is a bit more advanced, but try to make sure that the way you organize the controls and the content is the same because it makes it intuitive. And it's how, with just a glimpse, you can get what the feature does or doesn't. And that's it. Thank you everyone for your attention. I hope you got a few tricks. I'm excited to see what you will do on your side. On my side, I'll keep checking all the Odoo screens to see how we can improve. Thank you very much. And in just a few minutes, we'll do a short Q&A. So if there's something that you want to share or ask, this is the right moment. Just type your question in the chat and I'll drink some water and come back to answer those.
Hi, good evening. How is everybody going? So we are here to answer some of your questions regarding the talk. Of course, we're going to try to get to as much as you can, going through everything that was already said. We're starting this night with the first question here from engineering. So, are you working on some specific UX standards to Bootstrap focusing on the UX?
So usually what we do, it depends on which scope you work on, but since I mainly work on functional applications, it means that I tend to try to respect the Odoo framework.
Okay.
So the general design and interface and technical structures is defined by other teams. And then when we need something because we really think there's something to do, we work with them on it. But most of the time, we need to work with the tools that we have. And so we need to be subtle about what we can change or not, because the goal is to, even within Odoo, stay standard and not have a lot of specific widgets and interface all around the place.
Okay. We have here another question. Any changes in V15 in comparison to what you had previously? What about these changes? What can you bring more?
It's a question for Sébastien. So hello, Sébastien. The thing is, tools. So for those who don't exactly see what it is, when you will try your Odoo 15 version, and you should try it right away, you will see that you will have those purple dots that will tell you the first steps that you need to do in the app. So those are what we call tools, and it's something that we are playing with, and we try a few things here and there, but it's really tricky to get it right step by step, because the problem is basically what you do is you trigger specific steps, and as soon as the user gets out of this specific way, the tool basically stops because we cannot follow up. So that's why I didn't really talk about it. For now, we're still thinking about how we could make it better, and I think they have a role to play, but we still have to get it just right so that it's a bit more flexible.
Okay, it seems, as you can see, there's even a person asking about a 6 tip, a personal 6 tip.
Let me see. Yeah. 6 tip. I mean, people, what I also like to do, and it's something that for developers, it's really not really fun, because those are not tasks that they love to do, but I like checking error messages to see what they say, because most of the time, if you imagine a user at home, working, and then suddenly something goes wrong, if the error message is something like really technical, or just something like, oops, it went wrong, for us it's easy because we know exactly what went wrong and how we could fix it, etc., etc.
Exactly.
But for the user that's working, at home or at his company, and where the guy is actually the Odoo expert, it's extremely frustrating to face an error message that you have all the time, and you just don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we try to do with our R&D team is to go through those and just try to write them differently, and usually what we try to do is avoid technical language, because developers speak it but non-developers do not.
Exactly.
Have something that explains what went wrong, so that they can understand what the issue is, and if it's possible, always try to offer a solution, because otherwise it's just frustrating. So
Yeah, exactly.
we try to say like, you cannot do this because blah blah blah, but here is a workaround, you should try blah blah blah. And with this, we hope that the user will be able to understand what went wrong and just find a workaround, instead of when on Windows, when you click a million times and it does do because you just can't. So
we have here also a big question from Paul Williams. So the accounting department feels a little or completely overwhelmed by the menu options. They are in V13. How to simplify the standard views in the accounting app?
Yeah, accounting is tricky because you need so many different things and so many different reports that indeed, compared to, for example, the CRM, on which I work a lot, well, on accounting you need all those different reports and all the legal ones and the reporting one, business intelligence, etc., etc. So it's indeed quickly gets overwhelming, especially when you have a lot of companies in multiple countries. What I suggest maybe is to see with customization if maybe they could, that's something you can do with Studio, tweak a bit the menus so that all users don't get to see all menu items, So if you work on a specific part of the accounting, maybe ask your admin to remove the others,
Mm-hmm.
so that you play around with 8 to 10 menu items and not 25 or 30, because then indeed you just scroll in the menus and it's frustrating.
Yeah, in this way you
And
can simplify a little
yeah.
bit the usage of the system.
And I just thought about it, but in V15 actually you will be able to use the shortcuts that Fabian
Yeah.
showed. So you will be able to do like Control
Okay.
K slash and then type a few words and find the menu you were looking for.
It's
So no more scrolling in the.
it's actually quite nice.
Yeah.
What we have here a question as well. Why did you move the import button?
It's another of my developers, Hello Thibaut. The import button was it's a very, like, it's one of those tiny changes that you do it and then the word explodes because everybody has a strong opinion about it. And that's something that I love about my job, is that we can, those are just pixels on the screen and we can talk about it for years.
Yeah.
The issue with the import button was that when we were checking the user tests, we saw users that had, for example, they were entering the CRM. So they were opening the pipeline, clicking a bit around, and instead of playing, with the pipeline, markers one, create quotations, they were thinking, oh, that's cool, let's try with my data, and they were jumping into the import flow, and there we could see on the user test that they were just completely lost, because import is a bit, it got better in V15, but in the previous versions, it's technical because you need to know what you're doing.
Exactly.
And so we were saying users that had a great start, trying out the CRM, loving it, etc., and then being completely lost because they click on a button that was extremely visible, and then we could see that they were getting frustrated and they were just leaving the app.
So exactly.
Not
So
cool.
this way makes it better.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody. Thank you for watching the talk. It was a pleasure having you. It was a pleasure talking to you, Luc.
Thank
and,
you.
see you soon, and have a rest of a good evening.
See you. Bye.
Bye.